The strange payment asterisk, the sun on planet Duras 12, was red and angry. The air was dry, full of dust and metal smells. Nothing lived here except old machines, rust, and forgotten people. Jake lived alone on this mining world. He was a scavenger. He collected broken machines, ship parts, and rare metals to sell. His ship, the Rust Rider, was small and old, but it worked mostly. One day, Jake met an alien trader at an old refuel station. The alien had yellow eyes, 3 arms, and a deep, strange voice. He was known as Cravo the Collector. Cravo always brought strange items, and Jake didn't trust him much. But today, Jake needed fuel. Without it, he would be stuck here for weeks. Jake handed over rare power cells, and Cravo gave him fuel, some tools, and one more thing. A bonus? Cravo said with a twisted smile. A gift. Special. From the back of his ship, 2 alien guards dragged a small containment pod. Inside it, behind the glass, was a girl. An alien girl. She looked young, maybe 20 in human years. Her skin was a soft blue with silver lines. Her eyes were closed. Her long white hair floated in the pod's liquid. Jake stepped back. "I don't want a slave," Cravo hissed. "She's no trouble. Quiet, weak. No one wants her. Jeez. Yours now. Think of it as part of the deal." Jake looked at her again. Something felt wrong. She didn't look like a broken slave. She looked clean, calm, like she was sleeping on purpose. "I don't need her," Jake said again. Cravo shrugged. Too late. The guards dropped the pod beside Jake's ship and walked away. Back on the ship, Jake placed the pod in a small, empty room. He connected it to a power source and waited. Hours passed. The girl did not wake up at night. Jake sat in his control room, watching her on the camera. Suddenly, the screen glitched. Static filled the feed. Then it returned and the pod was open. Jake jumped from his seat. He ran to the room. The girl was gone. Jake grabbed his blaster and slowly moved through the ship. The halls were dark. Silent. Then, he saw her standing in the shadows of the engine room. She wasn't scared. She looked straight at him, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "Stop right there," Jake said. She didn't move. "Who are you?" he asked. She said nothing. Jake stepped closer. "I'm not going to hurt you." Still no answer. Then suddenly, the ship lights flickered. The engines made a soft hum. Jake's screen on his wrist blinked. It was receiving data, but he hadn't touched anything. Jake looked at her. "Did you do that?" She blinked slowly. "You are, Jake." Her voice was clear, calm, no fear. Jake was surprised. "You speak English?" "Yes." "Where are you from?" Silence. "I don't want a slave," he said. "I didn't ask for you." "I know," she said. "But you have me now." Jake lowered his weapon. "You hacked my ship." "How?" She didn't answer. "I don't know who you are, but something tells me you're not just some slave." She tilted her head. "You're smarter than the others." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Later that night, Jake locked her room and checked the system. She had entered his ship's core memory. No one could do that without a code. She hadn't even touched a screen. He looked at the camera again. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, calm like before. On her neck, he noticed something. A small silver mark. A symbol. It looked old, royal, and powerful. Jake searched the system. He had seen that symbol before. It belonged to a lost alien empire. The Valari Kingdom. They were destroyed years ago, but the royal bloodline had never been found. Jake leaned back in his chair, heart beating fast. "She's not a slave," he whispered to himself. "She's something else." Outside, the wind blew red dust across the dry land. Inside, something dangerous and powerful had entered Jake's quiet world. and nothing would ever be the same again. Asterisk. The silence inside the Rust Rider was strange. Tonight, it was the kind of silence that didn't feel empty. It felt full, like something was listening. Jake couldn't sleep. He sat alone in the cockpit, watching the stars outside. But his mind wasn't on the stars, it was on her. She hadn't spoken again since the engine room. She was quiet. Too quiet. He checked the camera again. The girl, the alien, was sitting on the floor of the locked room. Legs crossed, hands on her knees, like she was meditating. Her white hair glowed softly under the dim red lights. But the strange part, she hadn't moved for 6 hours. No food, no water, no sound. Jake shook his head. What are you? The next morning, Jake unlocked the door and stepped inside. His hand rested on his blaster, just in case. She didn't look at him. She spoke. First, you did not sleep. Jake froze. How do you know that? I felt your mind. It is loud. Jake frowned. You can read thoughts. She finally looked up. Only when they scream. Jake didn't know if she was joking or not. He sighed. "'Kay, listen. Let's make a deal. You tell me what you are, and I give you food, and maybe freedom." "I do not need food," she said. Jake looked at her thin frame. "You look like you do." She smiled faintly. "You humans always see the surface." Jake left the room, annoyed and confused. He walked to the main control panel, started running a scan of her DNA from the air samples in the room. He needed answers. As the system processed the scan, he noticed something. The ship was changing, not the shape, but the systems. His navigation was faster. The weapons menu had new icons. A deep layer of coding was now visible. One Jake had never unlocked before. She had done this without touching anything. Jake looked again at the data. Her DNA wasn't fully readable. Half the code was encrypted, like it was hiding itself. Alien. DNA didn't do that. This was ancient tech. Royal tech. Then he remembered the mark on her neck. The silver crest of the Valari Empire. He stormed back to her room. "You're not a slave," he said. She looked up calmly. "No, then who are you?" Silence. "I found your mark, Valari crest. That's royal blood, isn't it?" She stood slowly. "Do you know what happened to the Valari?" Jake nodded. "Wiped out. Entire empire collapsed. Nobody survived. That's the story." She stepped closer. Her voice turned cold. "Stories are what killers tell to feel better." Jake didn't reply. She continued. "The empire fell. My people scattered. I was taken, sold, hidden, forgotten." Jake stared at her. "So, what are you now?" She whispered, "I am the last voice of a dead kingdom." The words hung heavy in the air. Jake sat down outside the room later, thinking hard. If what she said was true, then this wasn't just some slave. She was a survivor of a powerful bloodline. Maybe even their princess. That meant trouble. Big trouble. He could sell her, become rich, or help her and make enemies across the galaxy. But deep inside, Jake already knew one thing. He had seen something in her eyes when she woke. Not fear. Not hate, control. She wasn't asking for help. She was deciding what to do with him. Suddenly, the ship lights flickered. An alarm blinked on the screen. Incoming signal. Encrypted. Unknown. Source. Jake opened the message to whoever found the Valari asset. Return it now or be erased. Attached was a picture of her. Inside the pod they were watching. Jake stared at the screen, then looked toward her locked door. She wasn't just rare, she was wanted. It was raining in space. Not real rain, just metal dust and ice falling across the dark side of the abandoned satellite belt. From inside the Rust Rider, it looked like falling stars. Alira stood by the window. Staring at the storm of light, Jake watched her from the hallway. He hadn't said a word since the warning message came. She knew. He could see it in her face. Calm, but no longer hiding. Finally, he stepped in. "Who are you? Really?" She didn't turn. Her voice was soft, almost sad. "I used to be someone." Oh, Jake. Leaned against the wall. "You want to tell me the rest of that story?" There was silence. Then Alira spoke. "My name is not just Alira. I am Alira Villari, first daughter of House Villar 9. Jake blinked. "You're a princess." She nodded once. Jake laughed, not in joy, but in shock. "So I accepted a royal alien as payment. Like a second hand. Toaster." She looked at him now. "To save myself, I had to become worthless." Alira sat down slowly, her hands resting in her lap. "When my planet was attacked, our security collapsed in 2 days. I was evacuated in a royal escape pod. The rest of my family stayed behind." Jake asked, "They're dead?" Alira didn't answer directly. "Royal bodies burn in gold fire. I never saw the smoke." Jake sat across from her, confused. "Okay, but how does a princess end up in a slave market?" "The pod malfunctioned. Pirates found me, sold me. I stopped speaking, stopped fighting, became what they needed me to be, silent cargo." She looked away. "They stopped noticing me after that." Jake couldn't believe it. She wasn't just some refugee or runaway. She was legacy. He stood and walked toward the main screen. The message from earlier was still blinking. "Return the Villari asset." Jake turned to her. "Who sent this?" Alira's face turned serious. "They are not pirates, not soldiers. They are collectors. Powerful ones. They wanted me gone. They still do." "Why?" Jake asked. "Because I am proof. Proof that Villari blood still lives." She raised her hand. A glowing symbol appeared in the air above her palm. The royal crest shimmered in blue light. Jake stepped back. "What is that?" "A blood key," she said. "It only activates for the true heir." Jake paced the room, trying to think. "Okay, so you're a princess. You're being hunted. You've got space magic. What now?" Alira stood. "I want to go home." "Home? You said it's gone." "Not all of it," she said. "My brother might still be alive. If he is, he's either hiding like me or ruling from the shadows." Jake shook his head. "This is way above my pay grade. I'm just a guy who fixes broken ships." Alira walked to him. Her eyes were strong now. "Then fix mine. Help me reach Villari's space." Jake stared into her glowing eyes. She didn't look like a lost girl anymore. She looked like a leader. That night, Jake sat in the pilot chair, looking at old star maps. Villari's space was deep behind closed borders. Dangerous. Controlled. But if what she said was true, they were flying with the last living key to a fallen empire. He checked the cameras again. Alira wasn't in her room. "Where is she now?" he whispered. He turned to the engine room and froze. She was standing inside, eyes closed, hands stretched out. The ship's engine was glowing blue, alive, humming like it had never done before. Jake ran in. "What are you doing?" She opened her eyes. "I'm waking it up," she said. The stars were moving. Jake could see them shifting outside the window. Too fast, too bright. But the ship wasn't flying. He looked at the controls. All systems normal. Except one. A new symbol pulsed. Softly on the dashboard, a blue circle, turning slowly, glowing with the same color as Alira's eyes. Jake turned to her. "What did you do?" Alira stood still, hands behind her back, calm as ever. "I connected. The ship is responding to royal code." Jake stared at the screen. "It's thinking." She nodded. It's remembering. Before Jake could reply, the ship's lights flashed red. Alert, incoming vessel. Fast approach. Jake jumped into the pilot chair. What? Who's here? Alira's face turned serious. They found us. Outside, a sleek black ship tore through the silence of space. No lights, no ID signal, just speed and silence. Jake cursed. It's a ghost ship. No comms, no tags. Alira moved to the weapons panel. It belongs to the collectors. Jake muttered, I hate being right. The enemy ship fired. The blast shook the Rust Rider hard. Panels sparked. Lights flickered. Jake pulled the throttle. Hold on. The Rust Rider jumped forward, but it was old and slow. The enemy followed like a shadow. We can't outrun them. Jake shouted. No, Alira said, placing her hand on the controls. But we can outthink them. She closed her eyes again. The ship's engines turned blue. The console changed. New screens, new maps, ancient symbols. Jake blinked. What is this? A forgotten route, she said. Only royal ships know it. The ship jerked to the side, sliding into a strange, narrow tunnel of asteroid fragments. It was almost invisible, hidden behind a gravity field. The enemy ship hesitated, then disappeared behind them. The tunnel was tight. The walls were made of glowing green crystals. It looked like they were flying inside a frozen snake. Jake kept steering. One wrong turn and we're dust. Alira didn't blink. The path is loyal. Follow the light. Jake didn't understand that, but the tunnel did seem to shift when he moved wrong, almost guiding him back. Finally, they came out the other end. Empty space. Quiet. Safe. Jake let out a deep breath. That was insane. Alira smiled faintly. We're still alive. That means it worked. Later, Jake patched the ship while Alira sat in the corner, watching. You knew they would come. He asked. Yes, she said. Once I activated the ship, the signal went out. I hoped we had more time. Jake shook his head. Why are they so afraid of you? She looked up. Because I am the key. Not just to my kingdom, but to the technology buried with it. Jake paused. What kind of technology? The kind that can bend space? Rewrite matter? The kind that kings killed their own blood to control? Jake stared at her. And you, have access to all of it? She looked away. No, but I might remember how to find it. Suddenly, a light beeped on Jake's screen. A message. This time, it wasn't from the enemy. It was from a rebel beacon deep in Valari space. Jake clicked it open. To any loyal voice of Valari, if the daughter lives, bring her home. Your brother has risen, but he is not the same. Code V31 Alira stood up slowly. My brother, he's alive. Jake looked confused. Isn't that good? Alira's face turned pale. Not if he's the one controlling the collectors. The truth hit them both at the same time. Alira wasn't just being hunted, she was a threat to her own brother. That night, Jake stood outside the sleeping chamber, watching her through the glass. She slept like before, still calm, peaceful, but now he knew the truth. She was the last hope of a dead empire, and also a walking target. He looked down at the message again. Bring her home. Jake whispered to himself, and then what? Behind him, in the shadows, a small camera hidden. In the ceiling blinked once. Someone was watching still, always. It smelled like real food. Jake hadn't smelled real food in months. Not nutrient packs. Not recycled paste. Real, hot. Spiced, cooked. He stepped into the quiet outpost kitchen, still unsure if this was a dream. This is insane, he muttered. Looking around, we were almost killed 2 days ago. Now we're eating soup. The rebel hideout was small, hidden inside an old mining asteroid. Just 4 people lived there, off the radar. No signals, no ships, no enemies. Safe. For now, at least, that's what Zeke said, Jake's old friend. An ex-smuggler with a fake smile and fast hands. Zeke laughed as he stirred the pot. You still look like hell, Jake. I've been flying with a royal fugitive, Jake replied, sitting down. What's your excuse? Zeke grinned. I sell lies for a living. Alira stood at the corner, watching silently. She didn't sit. She didn't eat. Zeke looked at her and lowered his voice. She the one. The Valari girl. Jake nodded. She's not just a girl, I figured. Zeke stepped closer to her. You don't talk much, do you, princess? Alira looked at him with cold eyes. Words are wasted on men who hide knives behind smiles. Zeke raised his hands. All right. Still sharp, I see. Later that night, Jake sat with Alira in a small room lit only by a broken lamp. She finally spoke. You trust him? Jake shrugged. I knew Zeke before the war. We smuggled scrap together. He saved my life once. People change, Alira said, and friends lie better than strangers. Jake leaned forward. We need allies. We can't do this alone. Alira looked away. We shouldn't do this at all if you don't know who you're walking beside. Jake fell asleep in the hallway, gun near his hand, but Alira didn't sleep. She wandered into the tech room. Sat down at an old terminal, began typing. She was trying to find her brother. Suddenly, she froze. On the screen, a signal. Recent, close. From this asteroid, she whispered, no. Elsewhere, Zeke was talking quietly into a cum hidden behind a false wall. She's here. The Valari girl. Confirmed. A cold voice replied. Hold her. We're coming. Zeke turned. Jake was standing in the doorway. You son of a Zeke pulled his blaster. Jake jumped back, rolled into cover and fired once. The shot hit metal. Sparks, Zeke shouted. It's not personal. You don't know what she really is, Atia yelled. Back, I know enough. Alira appeared in the hallway, glowing blue light on her fingers. Her face was calm, but her eyes were burning. Zeke stepped out, blaster aimed. It's over, princess. Don't make me shoot. She didn't speak. She raised her hand. The blaster in Zeke's hand crumbled into pieces. He stared in horror. What? What are you? I am Valari, she said. And you just declared war. They didn't kill Zeke. They left him locked. In the old cargo bay with his cum unit smashed, Jake stared at the stars later. Silent. Alira stood beside him. He said, I wanted to believe we could trust someone. She replied, you wanted to believe in something safe. He turned to her. Do you trust me? Alira didn't answer right away. Then, I don't trust anyone, but I choose you. Jake didn't speak. They both looked out at the stars again. Far away, a new light blinked on the radar. A signal, Valari. Space.home, but not safe. Never safe. Asterisk. Her planet didn't look like a home. It looked like a ghost. Velarenine floated in the dark like a dying star. Beautiful. Quiet and full of pain. From orbit, Jake could see the cities below. They still shimmered, with gold towers and curved glass domes. But they were dark. Empty. Broken in places. The once living light of the royal cities had faded to a pale glow. Alira stood at the window, eyes fixed on the world below. Her fingers touched the glass like it might open a door to the past. I remember, she whispered. Jake said nothing. He could feel it, the weight of memory pressing down on her as the Rust Rider descended into the atmosphere. The sky turned deep violet. Strange shapes moved across the horizon. Old royal ships floating dead in the clouds like statues. Airfield they landed on was cracked and silent. No guards. No people. Just wind. Jake stepped out first, blaster in hand. Feels wrong. Alira followed, dressed now in a long, dark coat. Her symbol glowing faintly on her wrist. Everything here is wrong. She said they moved through the outer city, once a market district, now a graveyard. Shops were sealed, streets covered in dust every few steps. Jake spotted old banners with Alira's face, younger, smiling. Not this Alira, then a whisper. Children, somewhere. Nearby, Alira stopped. Did you hear that? Jake nodded. Voices, but no one's here. Suddenly, a group of people stepped out from behind the broken arches. They were dirty, thin, but their eyes were wide, staring at Alira, like she was a ghost. One woman stepped forward. She fell to her knees. Your Highness? Others followed, some cried, some knelt. Some simply watched, unsure if she was real. Alira didn't speak at first. She looked at them with quiet pain. Then she raised her hand. The symbol on her wrist glowed. I am Alira Valari, she said. Voice steady. And I have come home. Word spread quickly. In hours, a small group of loyalists gathered in the old metro tunnels. They had no weapons, only belief. They told her stories about her brother, about how he returned after the war, alone and different, how he claimed the throne but locked the city from its own people, how those who spoke her name were hunted. Jake listened from the corner. He's not just ruling, Jake said. He's hiding something. Alira nodded. And I'm going to find out what. That night, she stood in the old palace ruins. It was half destroyed, but her throne room still stood. The pillars cracked, the banners torn, but her footsteps echoed like a memory. She walked slowly to the throne. Her father's throne. She touched the cold metal. Then she heard a voice. You never belonged there. Jake spun around, blaster up. A figure stood in the shadows near the entrance, cloaked in deep red. Pale eyes. It was her brother. Older, thinner, different, alive and dangerous. Alira's voice did not shake. Talon, he stepped forward. Sister. Jake aimed his weapon, but Talon didn't move. You shouldn't have come back, he said. You were safer as a ghost. I didn't come back to be safe, Alira replied. I warned them, he said. No one listened. Now you'll ruin everything. Alira stepped forward. I already did. Tolan looked at her with something close to sadness. I kept the throne alive. I made peace with the collectors. I saved what I could. You sold our name, Alira said. You gave away our blood. Talon's voice turned cold. Then, I'll spill yours. He disappeared in a flash, a teleport beacon. Jake cursed. He was scouting. He'll strike soon. Alira stood still. Let him come. She turned to the small crowd behind her. It's time we take back what is ours. The palace doors were breathing. Not really, but it felt like it. As Alira stepped closer, the heavy gold doors moved with the wind, creaking softly, as if they remembered her, as if they were waiting. The people behind her stayed silent. A mix of rebels, scavengers, children, elders, not soldiers, not warriors, just those who believed. Jake stood beside her, eyes scanning the rooftops. It's too quiet, he said. Alira nodded. That means he's ready. Inside the palace. The lights were already on. Talon was waiting on the throne, dressed in royal red. A black crown glowing faintly above his head. Not metal, not real. A holographic crown, a symbol of stolen rule. You brought outsiders into our walls, he said. You brought dust and ruin. Alira stepped forward. You brought fear. I brought peace. You call silence peace. Talon stood. You think you're the true heir because your blood glows blue. But the galaxy doesn't want queens. It wants control, Jake whispered. He's stalling. And then the ceiling exploded. A fleet of collector drones swarmed the air, black and gold machines shaped like knives. They dropped down, fast, precise. Jake pulled Alira back. We walk into a trap every time. But Alira didn't flinch. She raised her hand. The drones froze midair, one by one. They turned toward Talon. Alira's voice was cold. You used royal tech to make war. Aliyah, speak to it with memory, with blood. The drones fell. Silence. Talon stepped down from the throne. You think this changes anything? Jake aimed his weapon. I think you just lost your army. But Tolan wasn't afraid. He walked toward them slowly. Let me show you what power really looks like. He lifted both hands. The room shimmered and the floor broke apart. From the cracks, a giant machine rose. Old, ancient Valari design, but corrupted, twisted by collector tech. A mech, tall as the throne room ceiling, powered by stolen royal blood. Jake shouted, "That's why he hunted your people." Alira's voice trembled. He turned our blood into fuel. The mech fired. Blue flame, twisted red. The rebels ran. Walls cracked. Jake pulled Alira behind cover. You can't fight that thing without weapons. I don't need weapons, she said, standing Alira. But she was already walking into the fire. The mech turned toward her. She raised both hands, glowing brighter than ever. And then she spoke in Valari tongue, old words, sharp and soft, like music and thunder. The mech froze. Its lights blinked, then dimmed. Its legs bent slowly, and it knelt. Jake stared. You didn't just wake the ship. You woke the kingdom. Talon collapsed to his knees, the crown flickering. No, he whispered. They said you were gone. Alira looked at him, not with hate, but with grief. I was, she said, but you buried the wrong sister. He looked up at her with empty eyes. What will you do now? She paused. Everyone waited. Then she said, nothing. She turned to the rebels. This throne is not mine anymore. I will not wear the crown of a broken kingdom. Tolan asked, then what are you? She smiled. Free. Days later, the people began rebuilding. The mech was taken apart. Its power cells used to light homes, not fuel war. Talon was sent into exile, not killed, not crowned. Jake stood at the edge of the old city walls, watching ships arrive. Real ones this time, carrying food, medicine, engineers. Alira stood beside him in quiet clothes. No symbol on her wrist. He asked, still sure. You don't want the throne. She looked at the sky. Power is heavy. Freedom flies. Jake smiled. Where to now, princess? She looked at him. Not a princess. He laughed. Right? Just a girl who commands ships with her mind. She smiled back. Exactly. They boarded the Rust Rider together, just two shadows under a healing sky as the ship lifted far above them. Something shimmered in deep space. A dark signal. Watcher drones. Old code. Still listening.